Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry for the delay, and welcome everyone to today's Python workshop. And again, sorry for technical difficulties. So, first of all, we have a link there if you haven't already seen it, and that's for the GitHub repository for this workshop. If you go there, you can see instructions for how to set up, install everything, and get started. So if you haven't already done that, it's okay, because there is a link on top of that page that says My Binder. If you just click on that link, it will take you to a website which starts a Jupyter notebook for you on the cloud, so you don't have to install anything to follow along. Okay, my name is Nima, and I'm a PhD student here in the EC department, Electrical and Computer Engineering. My main research topic is using machine learning in serverless computing, which is like a new field in cloud computing. Lots of buzzword. And so first of all, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to get to know you. How many of you here have used at least one programming language before? Okay, so let's reverse that question. How many of you have never been exposed to any programming language at all? Okay, that's great. Just you? Okay. Because this is just a one-day workshop, it's best for you to later follow up and read a couple of books, do a couple of online courses. But for those of you who have already done programming in another language like C, C++, Java, or anything else, you should be able to learn how to use Python very fast. So first of all, we're going to have an introduction, why we should learn Python, and what are the basics of Python, declaring variables, stuff like that, what are the operators, expressions, control flows, and we're going to learn all about functions, how to use them, how to write them. And in the end, we're going to take a look at Python modules and some of the most well-known data structures and a little bit of object-oriented programming. So this is going to be fast-paced. If you couldn't follow along, it's completely fine. There are many links that can help you continue what we start here, and do a couple of projects by yourself, so that you can get a better handle of it. So, what brought you here? I just want to take a moment to ask you, what brought you here? What caused you to take the time to come here, wait for half an hour, trying to learn Python? Yeah. It's a useful tool for a research project. It's a great tool for academics, because it is designed to help you build something really fast. Anything else? Has anyone looked for a job that has to know Python in the title? Yep.
Yeah, lots of hiring people with Python skills in programming.
Exactly.
More than just MATLAB is great.
Yeah. So, like 5-10 years ago, people were just learning MATLAB. And the issue with MATLAB is that it's not open source. So it's going to cost companies a lot for their employers to use MATLAB. But Python is open source, free to use. It has a ton of modules. And because of those modules, you can use it in any field. So why should we learn Python instead of like other programming languages like Java, R, or other things? Simpler, faster to learn? Open source, exactly. So these are some of the reasons that I found useful for a person to start learning Python. So first of all, it has a very simple syntax, and on average, the code is 3.5 times smaller than Java or C++. You can see a very simple program here that just prints out this is text in 3 languages: Python, Java, and C++. As you can see, Python is just one line, print, this is a text. Simple, easy to learn, easy to remember, and very efficient. There are a lot of opportunities here. Although it's simple, it is very powerful, and you can do a lot with it. It can be used almost everywhere in any field that you're trying to use it. And they use it on a massive scale in web development, data science, machine learning, AI, web scraping, game development, scientific and numeric computing. And it's a great tool to have wherever your career takes you, because maybe you know what you're doing right now and you're doing it on MATLAB, but what if you need to put what you're doing on the web? Maybe you need to start a website. Maybe you need to do something else later on. So if you have this tool, you can use it in almost anywhere. It is used by many companies. That's why it has a very high demand right now in hirings. So Facebook, Google, NASA, Quora, Amazon, Reddit, Netflix, Dropbox, all of them are using Python in their production systems. Its growth is very fast, and it is used by many startups for the same reason that many academics use it, because it is very fast to develop. So if you want to build something really fast, Python is the go-to language. It has a great community and it is open source. So there are a massive number of developers out there coding libraries, creating beautiful stuff with Python, and many of them are open source. So you can use their code and try to come up with new ideas. And as you can see, it's the fastest growing major programming language in the world. There are a lot of resources. Python has more than 182,000 packages on its package manager, which is called PyPy. So you can use these packages. These are libraries that are coded by other people and you can use in your projects. And third-party libraries can be found almost for anything, like NumPy is for numerical computing, EarthPy, AstroPy, astrophysics, and Pygame, TensorFlow. These are some of the most well-known packages in Python. So those are some of the reasons I found useful for learning Python, and these are some of the links to different stuff that you could take a look at later on and learn useful stuff. So we're going to head down to coding. First of all, as I have written here, there are 2 ways you can follow along with this workshop. The easiest one is to just click this launch binder, and it will create a Jupyter Notebook environment for you that you can use anywhere on any device to try out coding Python. And the other way is to install Anaconda. And as you see, I had some issues with downloading packages, so I'm going to use my binder as well. Sounds like the internet is getting disconnected. Okay, the slides are here if you want to take a look at them later on. And also after this session is done, I'm going to upload the videos to YouTube and put the links here if you need to take a look at them later on. Okay, what's going on today? Yeah.
It's about MyBinder thing.
MyBinder is a free website.
Google like MyBinder.
Yeah, you can just Google MyBinder and you give it any GitHub repository and it will automatically set up an environment for you. It will detect what it needs. For example, here it automatically detects that we need Anaconda and then it installs all the packages online for you. It will set up an environment on the cloud for you. Okay, well, this is being set up, and does anyone have any questions for me?
So you can use the Anaconda navigator in the environment?
No. After you install Anaconda, you have a thing called Anaconda prompt. Okay? If you go here, you change your directory using cd to the folder that you downloaded and installed the GitHub repository.
Using the code that you showed on
Yeah. So git clone it and change directory to that folder and just run that one line of code. It will set up everything for you. It will install Python 3.6 for you and all the packages that are necessary. Sure. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna do something else here because this is taking forever. So after you have set up the environment, you can do conda env list, which will list all the environments you have in your Anaconda. And then conda activate the name of the environment. So I have something else here. Okay, great, finally. Okay, so let's get started with the basics. I hope you could set up everything, but I'm having internet issues right now, so I'm using one of the environments I've created before. So this is called Jupyter Notebook. It's a place that you can try out coding Python. And it's very easy to use, and it's in browser, so you could use it online. And let's get started with the basics. So first of all, we need to learn how to print something. As you can see, you can just write print, and then in parentheses, whatever you write will be printed out for you. The comments are done using a sharp, a hashtag in the beginning of the line. That shows that this line is a comment, and it won't be executed. we can have two types of strings. So if you use double quotation and single quotation, it's both showing it's an string. So that's not like Java or C. In Java or C, one quotation means character and double quotation means it's a string, but here both of them are strings. So this is how we define a variable. I forgot to change the size. Can everyone see this? Okay. This is how you define a variable. You just write the name of the variable and then equal sign and the value that you want to assign to it. So this is assigning an integer to the variable called age. And if I write here 25.2, it will automatically be converted to a floating point. So you don't need to worry about what the format should be like other programming languages. So we have something. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so you ran. Okay, just try to use Finder. You can exit the breakout results. Okay. So if you want to write format strings, you can write it like this. You put it in brackets. So this says after this string, I'm going to put dot format and then give it two variables. The brackets show where those variables should be written. So, and the number inside it will tell the order in which they are going to appear afterwards. So this is the first one because we start at 0. The first one is going to be printed here. So the name variable that we have in the inside format will be printed here. And then we have the number 1 here. So the second variable, which is age, is going to be printed there. So if I just run this, it's going to say Nima was 25 years old when he wrote this book. Again, you can use any kind of variable in there. So if you put floating point in there, it's okay. Strings, integers, all of them are okay. You can also pass in the end. So if you take a look at here, you can see that, for example, if I say print hi and then print 2, you can see they are on different lines. What if I want them to be on the same line? Because it is automatically placing a line break there. I can say end equals something else, for example, a dash. This end is automatically being injected in the end of this thing that is being printed. So you can change the ending whenever you want. Again, we can declare variables. We can say I equals I plus 1, which will increment I by 1. And we can also have multi-line strings, which are either shown with 3 quotation marks or 3 double quotation marks. So as you see, it automatically puts a line break here, as we have in this string. And something else, unlike most programming languages, in Python, indentation is very important. So if you put in the wrong indentation, it's not going to be executed. It will say unexpected indent. That's kind of more for the readability of the code. Yes?
How to execute one of the lines? How can we execute any line or that we already like that?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I forgot to say that one. You just select that cell. It's going to be executed all at once. You hold Control and then press Enter. Hold Control, press Enter. Okay. So let's go to operators and expressions. It's like most programming languages, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 2 times 3 is 6. This is how we say to the power of. You can divide using a slash, and if you place 2 slashes here, it will be divided and rounded down to the nearest integer. We have modulo. Left shift, which is binary. If you don't know what left shift is, it's not very important because the chances that you are going to need it are very low. It's just binary shifting the bits. So we have left shift, right shift like this, bitwise and bitwise or. Again, most probably you won't need to use these. Bitwise XOR. Bitwise invert. So if you want to compare two integers, this is the way we're going to do it. We say 7 is less than 8. This is going to return a boolean for us. So as you can see here, 7 is less than 8 is true, as is the value here. So we can use this for conditional execution of parts of our code. Equal than, less than or equal, greater than equal, and here's how we check equality. So pretty basic, just like most programming languages. Not equal, and you could also, for checking booleans, you could also say, for example, 7 equals 7 and 8 equals 8. So you can say one condition and the second condition, or one condition or the second condition. Okay.
How to insert new line? How to insert new line?
New line? First person?
Enter.
Yeah. So you can say, for example, a equals 1, then press enter, b equals 2, and then control enter will execute this for you. Also, we can check, for example, this is true, which checks if this is true or not, or this is false. So having conditions is just like writing them in English. If a equals 2 and so on and so forth. So true and false, true or false. This is true, this is not true. It's just like English. So we get to control flows. Yep.
The question was how to create a new input.
Oh, sorry. You mean a new input. Okay, so you go here, you see a plus. So you press that, it will add a new one for you. So for the control statements, we use control statements to have like conditional execution or repetitive execution of parts of our code. So that's how we use like if, else, while, for, stuff like that. So here we're going to do a simple guessing game. We say, for example, number equals 23. Guess is input, enter an integer. This is how you can get an input from the user. So if I say input, enter an integer, this will ask the user to input an integer here. So for example, 12. And then it will give us the string format of what user wrote, typed in. So I want to convert this to integer. I just write int of that value. So it will ask for user to enter an integer and then convert it to the integer format from a string. And then we can easily see if guess equals the number that we had in mind, then congratulations, you guessed it right. If it's not, if it's less than the number, it's a bit higher than what you have written. And here's how we can have if, else if, and else. So you can have many else ifs. So it will be executed like this. If this condition is true, do this. If it's not, else, and then another condition. So that else if means else if. So if the first one is not true, it will go to the second one. Check the condition. If it's true, it will execute that one. If it's not, it will move to the other one. If none of the else if statements are true, it's going to execute the else one in the end. So here's how we write if. If and then condition, then a colon. We move to the next line, and we have to have one level of indentation here, which is just pressing tab. So if I just press tab, it will move indentation. And this is inside our if statement. Whatever we want to be run if that condition is true, we place there. And then when we are done with if, we just move the indentation back using Shift Tab. And then in the end we press, we can print done. So let's run this, see how it goes. I input 21. It says no, it's a little higher than that. So what happens is that guess was not equal to the number we had in mind, but it was less than the guess was less than the number we had in mind. So this block of code was executed. So we have while statements here. Where do we put while statements? Loops. What happens then? It iterates as long as the condition inside the while is satisfied. So we have a variable here called running. It's a Boolean variable. As long as running is equal to true, this block of code will get iterated over. So we say while running, and then we have the same block of code that we had earlier. Check the number that the user entered, see if it's equal to the number we had in mind or not. So let's try that again. It says enter an integer. Let's say we have 11 here. It says no, it's a little bit higher than that. But it doesn't end here. It will ask for me to input again because the running is still true. The only way running will be false is if we guess the number correctly. So for a second time, we say 25. Again, it says that's not true, but we have to go lower, and then let's say we guessed it right. Then running will be false, and we'll come out of this loop. So any questions so far? Okay, let's move on to the next one. So we have something, we have in other programming languages what we call array. What are arrays? Set of values. The difference in Python with programming languages like Java and C is that in Python arrays you can put any kind of variable. So for example, in Java, if you have an array, you have to just put integer or floating points inside. In Python, you can put anything you want in those places. So in Python, we call array list. So when I say list, it means array. We have a special object called range. So you say, I want the range between 1 and 5, starting at 1, incrementing until 5, but not including 5. If I run this, it will say range 1 and 5. It will create that object, but I want to take a look at what those numbers are. I can convert it to a list. So here's how I can convert that to a list. I just write list, and then inside I pass in the range object. If I execute this, you see it says 1, 2, 3, 4. So with range, we can do for loops. And I'm going to show that to you in a bit. But first, let's take a deeper look into range. I can say what the increment should be between each of those values. So if I write 2 here, and then let's say I want it to go all the way to 10. It will increment by 2 each time. So start at 1, increment by 2 until you reach 10, but not including 10. I could also go in reverse order. I could say 10, 1, and then -1. So it will start at 10, go with increments of -1, which is going one step backward each time. Goes all the way, but not including 1. All the way to 1, but not including it. So for loops, here's how we write them. We say for I in, yep.
I just tried to look at it, and I used instead of going like steps, trying to get 1.5.
Okay. Did you try it inside the range, right? Okay. I said list can hold anything. So here's what you can do. 1 high 2.5. This is a list. But range doesn't do that. Range is just getting some integers and going with some increments. If you want to do like 0.1 increments or stuff like that, you have to use other packages like NumPy. So NumPy has a function called arrange. So for example, if I say, and this is jumping ahead a bit, let me import it. I'm going to talk about how we can import and use other packages later on, but this is just to demonstrate. So we have all these different packages, and each of them are very good for one purpose. So for example, NumPy is very good for working with numbers and matrices and stuff like that. So if I want to do something special, I have to use that, but range is just for integers. So for loops are written like this. So you say for I in that range. So we know range 1 and 5 means start from 1, go to 2, 3, 4, and then stop there. It is not including 5. So each time that block of code that is inside the for loop, and the inside the for loop is shown with a colon and then indentation afterwards. So inside the loop, that would be executed for each of those values in the range, and I will be equal to each of them in each iteration. So the first time I will be 1. So we say it will be like I equal to 1 and then print I, which is what we see here. The next time I equals 2 and then execute that block of code again. And then we can have an else statement. This is not like other programming languages, but this just runs after the for loop is done.
Is that mandatory?
No, you can just remove this and get rid of the indentation here. It will execute exactly the same. Yep. Include the 5, you write 6 there. Yeah. Okay, questions? Yep.
I tried to insert that in, but didn't give me a number. It gave me
What did you write? Okay, so let me show others what the issue is. So, okay, let's say I put input, write something here. So it is waiting for my input. So it's executing that block of code, and in there the program is just sitting there waiting for me to input something there. So I cannot run another cell block while that is not done. So it's just stuck there until I input something. One way is just input something and it will execute the next one for you. So if you have issues and you don't know why it's just frozen there, you can use this stop button and it will stop the execution of that block of code. So I just press this and it will interrupt the kernel and stop. Sometimes it doesn't work, as is the case here. Then we're going to have to restart the kernel, start fresh.
what I want now is I want to skip one of the landscape, then go to the next.
Okay, if you skip one of the cell blocks, that block of code is not going to be executed, but it won't matter for you. Whatever cell you execute, it will run that cell for you.
So that I already like running also, and there is one line I don't want to skip, but I want to continue. So I will skip this line.
Oh, you have to just comment that line of code. Comment, yeah. You can comment using the shortcut control and then slash. Yeah, for example, on this line, if I press control slash, it will comment it. I press control slash again, it will uncomment it. Okay, yep.
Question regarding the space. Is space important for Python or semicolon is really important? For example.
Okay, so we don't have semicolons here. It's mainly for the readability. So the creator of Python developed Python basically for high school students. So he said if we have to put a semicolon on the end of every line, why do we have it? So let's get rid of that. And the code is not compiled, it's a scripting language. So each line is going to be run separately versus like Java or C, which are going to have to be compiled. So those are some of the differences. You don't need any semicolons, it's just very clean code, and the indentation is necessary to be right, so you cannot use it without writing beautiful code. That's what the purpose was.
What about the space or inter or indents?
Okay, so indents are mandatory, and they could either be 4 spaces or 1 tab. Each of them works fine. And what was the other question? it doesn't matter how many inters you input there, but spaces, I'm not sure. Let's see. Yeah, because I put a space there, the indentation is not right. So I'm gonna have to do the spaces in the beginning right, but in the end it doesn't matter. The end of the code, I can put many spaces here and it won't matter.
And the space and tab is the same one.
4 spaces or 1 tab. Yeah. But usually I find this tab is easier. Okay. So, yep.
Is it possible to relate different variables between two
What do you mean relate different variables?
use another variable from different windows?
Now, oh, you want to use, for example, you have another window here, use the variable there? No, they are completely separate executions. So you will have to copy this block of code again here and run it here. They are separate. So I'm sure people who have written like programs in other languages are familiar with break and continue statements. So can anyone say what break statement does? Who is the program? No.
It breaks you out of the loop. It gets you out of the loop that you're in.
It gets you out of the loop that you're in. So you're running a loop, and all of a sudden, you don't want to continue in that loop, you want to break out of it. That's what the break is used for. What is the difference between break and continue?
Continue with the next iteration.
Yeah, continue goes to the next iteration. It just doesn't execute the rest of the code block we have there. So here we have while true. So this should be executed forever because the condition is going to be always true. And then we say enter something. If s is equal to quit, it will break, which means the code here will not be executed. So this block of code that I have highlighted will not be executed, and it will break out of this loop. So if I run this, I say quit, it doesn't execute this part. And as you can see here, it's not a star here anymore, so it means it has stopped that block of code from running. But if I say, for example, 2 here, s is not equal to quit, but the length is less than 3. So it will say too small, and then continue. As you can see, it did not print input is of sufficient length. So this part of the code was not executed, which I highlighted, which is after the continue statement, but it ran the iteration again, versus the break statement which comes out of the loop. So again, okay. Okay, so this time, and we see input of sufficient length, and when we are done, we can say quit. So what we have learned so far is just how the control flow works, how we can declare variables. We don't have to say what the type of the variable is going to be. We just have to give some value, and it will automatically assign the type for us. So a variable could be integer in the beginning, then you assign a floating point to it, it will be floating point, then you assign a string to it, it will be a string, whatever you want. It is going to change into that. So now we're going to do a very simple short project together. What you have to do is make a 2-player rock, paper, scissors game. So what you will do is you're going to ask for player to input either rock, paper, or scissors. So we have 2 players, each of them input something, then you say which one won, or if it's a tie. So let's get on with it. And if anyone had issues with setting up the environment, just tell me so I can help. You're using the Minecraft as a setup for you, so you can just write code here. Yeah. For example, I set it on my laptop, so you can install Anaconda, create an environment, install everything, but if you're having an issue doing that, you can just like my binder is working again, so if you want, you can use that if you then set up the environment. Sorry, something. Okay, so I'm going to help you get us started a bit. So what do we need to do? First of all, we have to be able to get the user's input. How do we do that? We just write input, and then, for example, what is the first player's choice. So what this does is it will ask for the first player's choice, and whatever the first player enters. So for example, if I say hi, it will return that as a string. Okay, so I can say this would be user one input. The same way, user 2's input can be taken. I just have to change 1 to 2. So right now I have what user 1 and user 2 have inputted there. Then I have to check if one of them is rock, paper, or scissor. So for example, I could write all combinations here. So if they are equal, it means it's a tie. And we check equality with double equals. So if user 1 and user 2 input the same thing, I can say that it's a tie. So if condition colon enter one indent, and then I can print something. So if I say rock and rock, it's going to be a tie. What else? We have to check if one of them is chosen rock, the other one paper, and all the combinations. There are other ways you could do that, and I'm going to just show you. I have the solutions in there as well, so if you want to cheat, you can do that as well. So I'm going to give you guys a couple more minutes. So the colon is used for showing where if, while, for loop, stuff like that. So I say if, then condition, then colon. This is the syntax of Python is like this. Or I say while, condition, colon. Shows that this is the block of code that's going to be executed while the condition is true, or if the condition is true. Yes? I can't hear you. Sorry. Okay. Okay, so the question is, how can we use a variable inside while? So I can say condition is equal to true or false, and then while condition. Or I can say while condition is true. And it's going to check. Yeah, you can say while this is true, or just while the condition. Yes?
It's running, but somehow now when it breaks out, it's very
okay, so sometimes, for example, the block of code gets stuck. So imagine I am running this part, so you can see a star here. It means this cell is being executed. So first of all, you could either input something so that it will get executed and finish up, or you can press this stop button on the top. It will interrupt your kernel. Sometimes it doesn't work. So for example, this is one of those conditions. With input it doesn't work. So I can just do restart the kernel. It will kill that execution block and then restart it.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm gonna open up the solution here. Let's go over it once together. So first of all, I'm asking for user 1 and user 2 to input their name. So I can use their name to say, for example, hi Nima, you won or you lost. Then this is how I ask for their input. So I've shown you how to use format before. So you write a string, inside you put brackets, and then you say dot format and whatever variable you want to write in there. Another way to do that is using %. So people who have written used C, C++, or Java before, you know something like fprintf or sprintf. So in there you say %s for a string or %d for integers or something like that. So with %sign you can use that formatting that you're already familiar with.
Or we can use the curly brackets.
You can either use this one or use curly brackets. Yeah. So here I check if what user 1 and user 2 input there are equal. It's going to be a tie, no matter what their selection is. If they're both choosing rock, paper, or scissors, doesn't matter. Then if user 1 has input rock, then if user 2 has inputted scissors, it means rock wins. Or if it's paper, paper wins. Yeah. This. Inside this. So you see, it's pretty easy to do conditions, if, loops, stuff like that. So any questions so far? Everything okay? There is another way we could do this, which is right here. And that is just to assign values to rock, paper, and scissors. And then we can say if, for example, scissors loses here, so the numeric value is larger than rock. Paper loses to scissors, the numeric variable is 1. But, for example, between rock and paper, it's -2. So if it's -2 or 1, you win. If it's 2, you lose. Something like that. So we haven't gotten that much into arrays and how we can check stuff in there. So just forget about this solution right now, but after we are done with this workshop, you can take a look at it again. It would probably make sense to you then. Yep. Okay, people who came in late, there are 2 ways you can access this environment. This is a Jupyter notebook. It's like an IDE, a place you can code Python in and execute it and stuff like that. There are 2 ways you can get into Jupyter Notebook. One of them is install everything on your laptop. That's going to take a while. So if you don't have that much time, you can just click the launch binder in the GitHub repository. It will open up the Jupyter Notebook for you, and it will be executed in the cloud. So it's just running on the cloud. You don't have to worry about it. It's like searching something in Google. It will be executed remotely. You can just go along with it for today, but later on you can install it at home. Install everything. Okay, for the next one, we're going to take a look at functions. Why do we use functions? Yeah, for example, what function's primary usage is to stop repeating code forever. So if you want to do something for 10 different things, you can just write a function and execute that function for each of them. So the main purpose of writing functions is to stop doing repetitive coding. So in Python, this is how we define functions. We say def, which is how we say I'm going to define a function right now. Then the name of the function. Then inside parentheses, we input the arguments that we want to pass to function. So what are the values, variables that we want to pass into that function so we can do something with them? Yep.
Like in MATLAB or R language, we can see parallelly like what are your data values. So like right hand side or left hand side, actually we can see the values of our metrics or of our data. But here actually again we have to go back if I want to look into some data. So is there not any other notebook or in the Jupyter notebook?
Yeah. So there are a number of ways you can do that. First of all, the best option if you want to like debug a code, get into the value of the variable and stuff like that, is to use an IDE. I suggest PyCharm. It's free, it's open source. PyCharm. PyCharm. And it's a great IDE. You can have a tab on your right hand side, just like MATLAB, and you can see a list of variables and their values. So it's very good for debugging. And there are extensions for Jupyter Notebook. I did not install it here, but you can just Google Jupyter Notebook extensions, and then you can add something on the right-hand side that's going to like list all your variables and values and stuff like that. But other than that, you have other ways. For example, you could print out that value. So these are the like your options. So what I suggest is use an IDE. If you're used to using MATLAB, IDE is the best option for you.
IDE?
IDE is an integrated development environment. It's any place that you can code inside and look at the variables and press run and stuff like that in any programming language. So for example, MATLAB is an IDE. PyCharm is another IDE. Yeah. So here we define a function, say def, the name of the function. Inside the parentheses arguments, we have no arguments here. So we just close the parentheses. Then again, we use colon to show that the function starts here. The next line is going to be indented. So again, just like if, for, while, all of these, if you want to show a block of code, you indent them all together. So here, I'm going to just print hello world. So if I want to do this twice, I can just execute that function 2 times. And for executing the function, again, the name of the function, and then in parentheses, you pass in the arguments. We don't have any arguments there, so we don't need to pass anything. So one thing you should keep in mind, which is different from other programming languages in Python, is that everything is an object. What I mean by that is that even functions are function objects. So if I say, for example, say hello. Oh, I did not execute this. So this is an object of type function. So this is something new. It was new to me when I first started learning Python, and it's just something you could get used to. And the good thing is it's very easy here to pass a function to an object. So, for example, those of you who are interested in doing machine learning or data science later on, imagine you have a database which is composed of 400 gigabytes of data or 2 terabytes of data. And you want to run one function on each row in that large database. is to create an object from your function and pass it to, for example, 10 different computers, and they will run at once and then give you their results afterwards. So you can use, like, for example, 20 computers to do something faster instead of running it in one computer. Okay, so as I said, if you want to pass in parameters to a function, you just pass them inside the parentheses. So the first argument that I pass to my function is going to be A, and the second one is going to be B. So here, if I run this block of code, it is going to define my function. So this is again different with Java or C or C++. You run that block of code which defines your function, and then you can use that function anywhere. So here, after that, I can say print max 23, and it will pass the value 2 as variable A, 3 as variable B. You could also use it in a different way. So I can say B equals to 2 and A equals to 3. So here, I just changed the order of arguments that I'm passing to my function. This is again different with other programming languages. So you can just pass in the name of your arguments and then put their values inside there. And then it won't matter what the order that appears in the function definition is. I could also have a variable number of arguments that I pass into my function. So imagine I do not know if the user is going to pass 2 values or 3 values. There are options like that as well. We're going to get to that later on. So first, let's take a look at this again. Print max, and then the first one will be A if I do not mention its name. If I mention its name equal, it's going to be like putting the order that I want. So as other programming languages, we have local variables. So can anyone tell me what local variables are? Yep.
It's a variable that exists only within that function.
Yep, exactly. So you can have different blocks of code, and you can have variables that are only defined inside that block of code. So for example, here we have a global variable called x. The value is 50. Then I go inside the function, and then here, if I assign 2 to x, only the local value of x will be 2. I haven't changed the global one. So here we have an x. Inside that function is going to be defined only inside that function, nowhere else. So I can have another value that is global and it's defined everywhere. So what if I want to be able to use that global value inside my function? So what if I want to be able to change the global value of x inside the function? So if you look at here, at the beginning, when we execute this function, x is equal to 50. Then we run this block of function. So when we run that function, we change the value of x to 2. But only the local value of x will be equal to 2. So you can say change local x to 2. But when the function executed completely and then we get to the next line, the local value of x will be thrown away. You will have the global variable again, and the value is 50. Yep.
Do you have to define, or is there a way to define like a variable as specifically global or specifically local?
Yeah.
Or is it just always assumed?
So the default one is that every variable is going to be local. But in the beginning of this function, I can say global x. What happens is that it says here whatever we assign to the variable x is going to change the global value, not just the local one. So if I run this again, oh, we passed it here, so I cannot do this. I will have to change it. So the problem was that if you pass that value here, it's going to be called x, and you cannot use x as a global variable anymore. So I changed that. So here we go inside this function, and I say x is a global variable. And then whatever I assign to x is going to change the global variable outside the scope of this function. Okay, so as I said, this is how we use the global statement. We can also have default values for arguments. So, for example, here we define a function called say. It accepts two arguments. The first one is the message, and the second one is the number of times we want to print it. But if we don't pass anything for times, it's going to assume it's going to be equal to 1. So here I say hello and didn't pass anything for the times variable. It's going to assume the value is 1 and it will print it only one time. But if I explicitly set a value there, it's not going to be, the default value is not going to be used. And as I said, we can change the order that we want to put the variables in there by just specifying the name of the value that we want to pass there. So here, if I say func 3 and 7, it's going to use the first value here as A and the second one as B. But if I say 25 and C equals 24, I haven't passed any values for B. So B is going to be equal to the default one, which is 5. A is 25 and C is 24. And also I can change the order in which I pass the arguments to this function. As I said, we can also have variable number of arguments that are going to be passed into the function. And here we specify one of them with 1 star and another with 2 stars. So when we pass arguments, some of them are going to be ordered. So when I say 10, 1, 2, 3, this will be the first, second, third, and fourth arguments that I pass to the function. These are ordered. But some of them have names. For example, if I say Jack equals 1, 1, 2, 3. So these are arguments that are being passed to the function with a name. So if you look at this function, it means that the first one, if they are ordered, is going to be called A. After that, whatever they pass as ordered arguments is going to go inside the numbers. So here we pass 10, 10 is A, and then 1, 2, and 3 go inside the numbers as a list, as an array. Then we have the named arguments, which are going to be passed inside the phone book. So here, when I execute this, we see that A is equal to 10, because 10 is passed first. Then we wrote a for here. For each item inside the numbers, which is this one, for each of them, print single item, and then its value. So it says single item 1, 2, and 3, which are these three. Yep.
Is single item a number, a variable?
Single item here is defined. So when you say for single item in numbers,
So that's a variable defined right there.
yeah, that's a variable defined right there. So here it means that we want to define a variable called single items. And then each of the values inside the number array is going to be put inside that variable, and it will execute that block of code there.
So why is it printing all at the same time when it is an array?
And so if I say print and then the name of the array, it prints it all at once. But then I ran a for loop, and inside it I printed them one by one. That's why it's writing them one by one. And just to be clear, this is not an array. We'll get back to the data structures later on, but this is another data structure. Yes? No. Yeah, just one star and 2 stars. 1 star is for the ordered arguments that are passed into the function. 2 star is for the named ones. For example, these that have a name all go into the 2 star one. The ones that have an order go into the 1 star one. It can be any number. For example, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just ordered. And it will automatically write it here for you. Yes?
Numbers in phone book, are they labels or we can give any name to them? Numbers in phone book, which you gave the arguments in.
You can give this any name you want.
Any name.
Yeah, any name you put in there, it will be assigned. Yeah, numbers is just a name I chose. Yes. And if they are ordered, so it means that you don't assign a name to them. So if I say 10, 1, 2, 3, it means I'm assuming they have an order. And the order is important. So these are ordered arguments that I pass into the function. But sometimes I want to be able to pass whatever name I want. So for example, change only one argument in 20 arguments that are going to be passed into a function. I can just say the name. So these are named arguments. In most programming languages, we only have ordered arguments. So for example, in C or C++, we define, for example, A, B, C, and the first one that you pass is going to be A. The second one that you pass to that function is going to be B. So the order is important there, so that's why we call them ordered arguments. Yes?
So with the 1 star and the 2 stars in the passing the function, when you have just 1 star, then the computer Python looks for all these single things, and then 2 stars it looks for 2 items. So it looks for a name and.
Yeah, exactly.
So could you have then like 3 stars?
No.
Like you only have up to 2.
Yeah.
Be a name and then the second item.
Yeah. So here you have a number of arguments that you put there. It's going to find something for A. If I have B there, it's going to find something for B. Whatever is left that is not assigned to any variables that you put in there, and it's ordered like this is going to be assigned to the 1 star argument there. And then whatever you put after that, which has name tags, it's going to be put in the 2 star one.
Okay. Did you also pass a string into one of the?
Yeah, whatever you want. So for example, I could say here, name is David. And you see that name David appears here. So whatever you want to pass in there.
So sorry to keep asking you, but
Yeah.
when you have total 10, 1, if you put total like name equals David, 10, whatever.
You cannot do that.
You can't do that.
No, the name arguments have to come after the order.
Okay.
So you have the ordered ones, and then you can start the name afterwards. So the question was that if I put, for example, time equals 2 here, what happens? This is a named argument, but the problem is that positional argument follows keyboard argument is an error. So you have to first put positional ones in the beginning and then put the keyboard ones afterwards. Yes?
This function does A equal find B.
It means that if the person who is using this function does not pass any values, we're going to assume that A is, for example, 5. So that's the default value for A. So if I don't pass anything here, I have not given it a value for A. So the default value is going to be used. So if I write this, it says A is 5. And since we don't have any positional arguments, this is going to be empty. And we don't have any keyboard arguments, the other one is going to be empty. Yeah, but also we can pass a value for A here. So if I put 7 there, it's going to use that for A. So here A is equal to 7, but again numbers and phone book is empty. Yep.
I think he means that the only way you can get in equal to 5 is that just using empty because it.
Oh no, we can also put a value here that is going to be assigned to A.
Because for example, something for the second variable.
You cannot do that. You have to first give it some value for A. Whatever is not used for the variables that you have in your function, for example, A, B, C, whatever you have in there. Whatever that's not used there is going to be passed into the one that is shown with a star. Yes?
The format should be exactly like jack equals to 1, 1 to 3. It cannot be just jack or.
No, it has to be the keyboard equals the value. Yeah. So you have to pass something in there. So again, we have the return statements like most programming languages. Whatever you return is going to be the output of your function. So here we have a function, it says maximum. You can input 2 values there, x and y, and it's going to return the maximum of those values. So if I say print maximum of 2 and 3, it's going to return a value to us. And then we can use that value and assign it to a variable. So I can say m equals to maximum of 2 and 3. And then if I print m, we see that it's 3. So while we're here, let's try using the format again. Imagine I want to say here is your maximum number, colon, then I want to put the value of the maximum here, and then I want to put exclamation mark in the end. So one way is that I can say star D, for example, and then pass it like this. It writes what I want to be written here. Another way is that I can say brackets and then in the end dot format, and I pass in the variable m. So it's going to use the variable m and write its value here where we put the brackets in. I can also set the order here. So I can say here's your maximum number for x equals something and y equals something else. Then I can put 0, 1, 2 like this. It means that the first thing I pass to format is going to be printed here. So I pass m here. The second one is going to be y. So then I can pass m, y, and x here. Okay, y is not defined. Oh, it's because we haven't defined them. Okay, so I can use those numbers to set the formatting. I could also do more complicated formatting here. For example, imagine x was 2.4 and I wanted to have a different format for my floating point. I could say for x I could add a colon here and then put 4.2f. These are the formatting that we use in sprintf, fprintf, and stuff like that. It's very well known and it's used in many other programming languages. For example, in MATLAB, you use sprintf to do something like this. So you can put any format you want in there which is compatible with sprintf, and it's going to use that for you. For example, I could say 0.6. So it means I want a total length of 6. This 0 means put zeros in the beginning if you need that. And 0.2 means I want two floating points, two values for float after the floating point. Yes? Can you repeat the question? Yes. So the question is that can we return more than one variable? Yes, the Python is one of the programming languages that you can return any number of variables that you want. We're going to see that in just a bit. Yeah. Oh, actually, I think we don't have it here, so let's do something else. Okay, let's say def myfunc. This is a new function I'm defining right now. I can say return 2, 3, high, and then, for example, 2.4. And then I can say, for example, m is equal to my func, and print m. So here, as you see, I just return a number of variables, and they are all in one variable there. I could also get the values in a different format. So I could say, for example, here we returned 4 different values. I could assign that to A, B, C, and D. So you have two options, either one variable which is going to be an array of the things that you return, not exactly an array, but something like that. And then the other option is that if you're going to return 4 different values, put 4 different names for variables there, and it will assign the first one to the first one, second one like that. We have something like this in MATLAB if you have done that before. Any other question? Yes?
What does return function?
So imagine you want to pass some values into a function. That function does something with them, and it gives you another value. So the value that the function is going to give you is what it's going to return to you. So it's like I give you these variables, and then you return to me something else. So if I want to declare a function which adds 1 to whatever I pass in, I can say def add 1, and then I say A. Return A plus 1.
Return is the output of the function.
The output of the function, exactly. Like MATLAB.
If I want multiple output.
As I said, you can say, for example, A plus 1 and A minus 1, and then print M and M equals add 1. So if you see that here M is 2 and 0, it's like an array, and I can select one input from it, or I can say M1 and M2, and if I print them, it will be like 2 and 0. The first one that you return is going to be M1, the second one that you return is going to be M2. Okay? Okay. Yes? Can you repeat that? Yes. All the return variables have to be indicated in the same line. Yeah. So because when the function sees that return statement, it's going to come out of the function. The rest of the code is not going to be executed. So they have to be in the same line. No, doesn't have to be the last one line in the function. So, for example, if you look at our example up there, here I can say return x if that condition is true. So, if that condition is true, it's going to return x and come out of the function. If it's not true, it will execute the rest until it sees a return statement or it's done with the function. If it's done with the function and you have not returned any variables, it's going to return none. None is something like null we have in C or Java. Yeah, for example, if I had like only first if, if that condition was not satisfied, I haven't returned anything. So it will automatically return none, which is something like null, which didn't return anything. Okay, questions? Yes?
So if I want to override a global variable, can I output like a global variable, say variable and override?
Yeah, of course. Another way to override the global variable is to say, for example, imagine I did this, and then I say x is equal to maximum, x and y. It will run that function on x and y, and whatever the output is, it will put it inside x. Yep. Okay, so any other questions? Let's move on to the next one. We have something called doc strings. Doc string is a way to have something like a mini help for that function. So doc string is shown with 3 quotation or 3 double quotation for beginning and end of doc string. And whatever you put inside that is going to be used as a help for that function. So if someone does not know how to use your function, for example, imagine you just installed NumPy, which is a library you have never used before, and you want to know how I should use this one function inside NumPy. You can just take a look at this doc string, and it's going to tell you how you can use that function. So it's a convention for programmers to give mini helps for their functions to each other. So it's going to be put inside a special variable. Special variables are shown with 2 underscores in the beginning and end of their names. So we have some of these special variables, and they can give you some hints about, for example, a function or an object or stuff like that. So here, each function has a special variable called underscore underscore doc underscore underscore. And it's going to be that mini help for that function, which is going to tell you how to use that function. In addition, people use this to generate some documents for their projects automatically. So if you search, for example, for a library in Python, many times you see a very well documented help for it. And most of what they do is just write a program that grabs these doc strings and puts it in a very beautiful website. So again, like the previous section, we're going to do a mini project, and then we're going to have a short coffee break, after which we will continue with using data structures in Python, some of them. Of course, we don't have enough time for all of them, but I have given you some references that you can go to later on. And we also have object-oriented programming in Python. So in this project, what we want to do is to generate Fibonacci numbers. So there are 2 different ways people address that. For example, they say for the input of 1 and 2 is going to be 1, and then each one is going to be the summation of the previous 2. That's one way to do it. Another one is for 0 and 1 input, you're going to assign 0 and 1, and then afterwards each variable is going, each output is going to be f of x minus 1 and plus f of x minus 2. So you can do the simple implementation of Fibonacci numbers with recursive functions. Just to recap, can anyone tell me what is a recursive function? Calls itself. So because we say f of x is equal to f of x minus 1, this function is calling itself. So this is going to be a recursive function. So try and do this. Oh, it's Shift tab. Shift tab. Shift tab. Just something else about doc strings, other than looking at it and stuff like that, you could also see it in the help that is brought up by your IDE. So for example, in Jupyter, if you select a function and press Shift Tab, it's going to open up something like this for you. First of all, it says this is the signature, which means this is how you should use it. You see the name there, you see the variables that you can input to that function, and then you see the doc string. So this is another way that is going to show you the help for that function. Just a second. Then these return the value and then all of them. It's just a text.
Yeah.
So this is Marco. This is the language for text formula. It's just like waiting.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's go over the solution. Maybe we can code it out here together. So I can say def f of x colon, this is how we define functions, we have seen that already. And then here I need an if, elif, and else statement. So I say, for example, if x is equal to 0, which is this first part here, we want to return 0. So this is what how we can deal with the first part. Then I can say elif, which means if x is not 0, if the first condition doesn't hold, then I add another condition. If x is equal to 1, return 1. So this is for the second part here. And else, which is the otherwise, I want to output the f of x minus 1 plus f of x minus 2. So I can say f of x minus 1 plus f of x minus 2, and I want to return this value. So return. And then if I say f of, for example, 5, it says 5, f of 1, 1, f of 2 is 1, f of 3 should be 2, and f of 11 is 89, which is what we get here. Okay? Any questions so far? So if anyone needs help with setting up stuff like that, I will be here, get a refreshment, and we're going to start again in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, so I got this working where I can call this function. Where I can recursively call the function, I can get the output, and it looks good, so it's fine. But I was wondering if there's a way, instead of printing directly here, if I could do something like, let's say I have like x of k, or s of k, right, equals this, and then assign it all to a
Okay, so if you want to return something like an array, you can do something like this. So for example, you can say before the array, I just create an array called a.
Yeah.
So I get this value and then say a dot append and this value. So you have sorry, append this value. This is going to append that to that array. And then you can just print a.
Okay, I see. So you have to use this append function to.
Yeah. Another way would be, say, for example, a of k equals
that function. Okay, so you use the bracket notation if you want to do it this way.
Run these, make sure it's working. Yeah.
Okay, I see. So it's similar to MATLAB, but you use bracket notation instead of parentheses.
Yeah. It says, this out of range. That was the NumPy array. No, you have to use that. Yes, sorry.
So why does this not work?
NumPy array are automatically sized, but the list, which is like the default array in Python, doesn't work like that.
Oh, so you'd have to define the size of the array, and then you could use that bracket?
Yeah, either that or use append.
Okay, or just append. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So in MATLAB, it will be automatically sized, but here
you have to define the size.
Yeah, either that or use a package that does that for you. For example, NumPy array are automatically sized.
Okay, I see.
But again, if you want to use them for large array like MATLAB, it gets very slow.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful how to use that. Try to instantiate the size before you setting values to it, stuff like that.
Okay, so pre-allocating a large array would be faster, and then just selecting that one iteration?
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, so if you want to do numeric computations, I suggest you to not use this at all, just use NumPy. So
just use NumPy? So
it's the most, it's like on the top 3 most used Python packages. And everybody uses that for example, any machine learning library uses NumPy underneath.
Is that a package I have to specifically install, or like is it just that append function?
Let me check if you have it installed, but you have to specifically install it normally, but you don't have it right now. But most, if you start something without specifically telling what packages, the Anaconda installs it for you, because most people use it anyway. So, but you can do pip NumPy.
Okay.
Pip installs Python.
Oh, okay.
Or pip installs package. It's a recursive.
Oh, okay.
Pip install.
Pip install NumPy, and then so with the NumPy, does it work automatically? Like you could just do that bracket?
No. You have to import it.
Okay.
And initialize the array as a NumPy array.
Oh, okay.
And then it will automatically do that for you.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll look at that.
So if you want to do anything numerical, I suggest you learn how to use NumPy.
Okay, for sure.
And there are a ton of tutorials up there.
For sure.